Hi, this is Sarit Switzer, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast, a podcast devoted to the teachings of Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi as recorded in his most famous work, the Tanya. My hope for this show is to make these teachings accessible and relatable to the average person, regardless of prior Jewish education or affiliation. The episodes follow the prescribed daily study portions and are meant to serve as practical lessons in how to live your life as your true self and develop an authentic and powerful relationship with your Creator. I have personally experienced the effects the study of this work has had on me, and I'm excited to share what I can of this knowledge with you. So please join me on this journey of learning, self-growth, and connection with your source. Hi, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast, episode 25. This is for the 13th of Teves in a leap year. And today we're going to be continuing with chapter 9. And the topic that we've been discussing is the godly soul and the animal soul, the two souls of a Jew. So if you've been following along, you've been learning about how a Jewish person has not one, but two souls. And you might have realized at this point that these two souls have very, very different desires. And these two different desires are actually very contrasting, and they don't align with one another. You can listen to some previous episodes to hear a little bit more about that. Yesterday, we discussed the different residencies of the souls within the body and how they kind of move in opposite directions. The animal soul starts out in the heart, and then it rises up to the brain where it rationalizes its desires, versus the godly soul starts out in the brain, and then it seeps down into the heart where it generates emotions from the mind. So today we're going to talk about the idea that these two souls cannot live in harmony. They don't live in harmony. They are very much at war, and the Alter Rebbe likens it to two different nations. So the Alter Rebbe actually begins this section quoting a verse from Bereshis, from Genesis, from chapter 25, verse 23, where it says, Le'um mile'um yematz, that one nation will prevail over another nation. So, and he explains that this is because the body is called a small city. And just like if you have two kings in one city, that's not going to work. They're going to fight. You can't have two kings ruling over one city, that each one wants to rule over it and each one wants to conquer the other city, meaning that they want everybody who lives in the city to listen to the directives of the king. And so the Alter Rebbe says that this is very similar to the two souls that are residing within the body, that they both are fighting for rulership over the body and rulership over the organs. And then he really focuses for the rest of this section on the godly soul and what the godly soul's desires are. So he says that the godly soul, what is its desire? It wants to have complete and utter control over all of the over all of the organs of the body, that they will listen to its biddings and to be totally nullified to it entirely and to be a chariot to it. And that the body will serve as a garment for its 10 parts that we talked about before. Remember, we talked about that the godly soul, as well as the animal soul, but here we're focusing on the godly soul, is made up of 10 parts. And that the 3 garments of the godly soul will be totally invested in the body, that the body will be wearing only these 3 garments of the godly soul, and that's it. And that no stranger will enter into its midst at all. So meaning to say, and he really breaks it down here, he says the 3 parts of the brain that we talked about will be completely and utterly filled with the 3 aspects of the Nephesh of the godly soul, which meanings to say, so if you remember what those 3 aspects of the mind are, it's chokhmah, bina, and das. Wisdom, understanding, and knowledge are very loosely translated with them. You can listen back a few episodes where I discuss these traits in a little bit more in depth, the definition of what they mean. But here, so what does it mean specifically in relation to having them manifest the godly soul? So it means to have chokhmat Hashem, so meaning that your entire wisdom is about God, and your bina is about God. So So what does that mean? That your understanding is about God. So meaning that your entire orientation of understanding and contemplation is about his greatness. And then we have the third aspect, which is das, which we learned about previously, is the intermediary between the mind and the emotions. So das is the tool by which Chochmah and Bina give birth to the emotions. So specifically, what are the emotions, the godly emotions here? He starts off with awe in his mind and fear of God in his heart and love of God, like a fiery flame, to be utterly consumed within God. And this type of love that the Alter Rebbe is describing here, this great yearning and desire to cleave to God will be so strong, he's saying, within the person's heart and soul, coming from the depth of the person's heart, that again is found, if you listen to yesterday's episode, we talked about this, in the right ventricle of the heart, to be so strong in this love of God that it's going to seep over and it's going to actually spread out into the left ventricle of the heart, which, if you remember from yesterday's episode, and you can go back and listen to that there, what is found in the left ventricle of the heart is actually the animal soul. So when the godly soul gets so strong and has this rulership over the body so much, what will happen is that this love will seep from the mind. Remember, it starts off in the mind and then goes into the heart, in the right ventricle of the heart, and it will be so strong that it will pour over into the left ventricle of the heart, where what happens is it actually subdues the sitra achra, subdues the other side. And specifically, it subdues the foundation, the element of water, which are all of the types of negative desires that we have. So remember, we talked about how the element of water is the source of desire that is found in the animal soul. And it will actually transform all of the desires that the animal soul has for this world, for, gluttonous kind of hedonistic kind of desires. And it will transform this into a love and desire for God. And then the Alter Rebbe quotes a verse from the Shema that we read, where it says that you should love God with bechol levavcha, with all of your heart. And if you look at the wording of that, levavcha, it's with two basim. So it's not just libcha, that would be just like your heart. So why is it with two basim? It's alluding to this fact that it should actually be with both of your impulses, both of your yitzarim. It's called in Hebrew like the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov. And this will lead to a very, very great love within a person's heart, which is greater, the Alter Rebbe says, than just a strong love that's like a burning fire. And tomorrow we're going to talk about more what this specific love is. So just to recap, that's the end of the section, but just to recap what we're talking about here. So again, we're saying that these two souls, the godly soul and the animal soul, they're really, really not naturally in harmony at all. Like they're really at war. And each one wants something entirely and totally different that is in fierce opposition to one another. And then we talked about today what it is that the godly soul specifically wants and what it would look like if it were to attain what it wanted. So we said that what the godly soul really wants is total rulership over the entire body. And this rulership would look like a total giving of itself over to God and love of God and wanting to cleave and be consumed totally in God. And the way that this would manifest, again, going back to what we learned about yesterday, that the seat of the godly soul is in the brain of a person. So it would start off in their minds, that a person's three intellectual faculties would be devoted to God. So a person would have this wisdom of God. They'd have an understanding of God through contemplating God and meditating upon God in this intellectual way. And this would translate into having their das, their knowledge that serves as an intermediary between the mind and the heart, to give birth to emotions within the heart. And this would manifest in the right ventricle of the heart, which is where the godly soul naturally seeps down into. And if this heart becomes strong enough, which is what the desire of the godly soul is ultimately, then this great love that's created and this great fear of God and great awe of God that we've generated through this whole process would actually not only just stay within the right ventricle of the heart, but it would pour over into the left ventricle, which is the seat of the animal soul, and it would actually transform the energy there, which is the energy of the other side, the sitra achra. And to be specific, it's the energy that comes from the element of water, which is the seat of all kinds of hedonistic desires in the world, and it would transform that desire, that energy of desire that is naturally coming from the other side, and it would actually transform it to be towards God, to be a deep and intense love and passion towards God. So that's it for today, and we will continue this tomorrow, and I will speak to you then. Thanks for listening to the It Is Taught podcast, hosted by Sarit Switzer. This podcast is dedicated in loving memory of my maternal grandfather, Avraham Yitzchak ben Binyamin HaKohen of blessed memory. Music by Shoshana. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support the show, please share it with others and subscribe on YouTube, Apple iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And make sure to leave us a 5-star review. To find out more about the It Is Taught project, including more information on my soon-to-be published book, please visit our website, itistaught.com. To catch the latest from me, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Looking forward to speaking with you tomorrow, and until then, have a great day.